Welcome to Alma Tales Lab, where lying wives and sneaky girlfriends finally get exposed. From girls' trips that never happened to coworkers who were a little too friendly, we break down every red flag, messy receipt, and suspicious text with humor, shock, and just a little bit of petty. Expect wild stories, dramatic reactions, and satisfying karma as the truth comes crashing through the door. If you love relationship tea, plot twists, and seeing players get played, this channel is your new home. Every single chaotic, jaw-dropping, binge-worthy episode. Hit subscribe and never miss a fresh dose of exposed cheating. Don't forget to check our previous stories. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing my girlfriend ever did was laugh at my name while she was cheating, then repeat it like a joke so the man in her bed could laugh too. I stood outside her apartment with flowers, hearing my whole heart reduced to a punchline. She did not sound guilty. She sounded entertained. Here's how it happened. My name is Derek Miles. I'm a black man raised in Prince George's County, Maryland, the kind of place that teaches you to keep your head up and your promises even when life gets loud. I work operations for a shipping company near Columbia, steady hours, steady pay, the kind of job where mistakes cost money and calm thinking keeps things moving. I'm not flashy. I'm consistent. I used to believe consistency was the safest kind of love to offer. I used to believe the right person would recognize it as rare. I met Imani Brooks at a weekend pop-up market in Washington, D.C., near Union Market. I was there for a friend's candle booth, mostly to support and get out of the house. Imani was running a small table of skincare jars with handwritten labels and bright, confident energy. She caught me staring at a jar called Morning Glow and said, "That's for people who want to look like they drink water on purpose." I laughed. It was quick, effortless. She smiled like she knew she'd already won. Our first date was in Silver Spring at a little Caribbean spot where the music was soft enough to talk over. She made fun of how carefully I folded my napkin, then asked me if I always organized my life like a spreadsheet. I told her yes, and she leaned in and said, "Good. I need a man who can plan." When the waiter brought our food, she took a bite, widened her eyes dramatically, and said, "Derek, this is dangerous. If I come here with you every week, I might start believing in love." I laughed again, and it felt like sunlight. The early months were genuinely sweet. Imani would send me voice notes on her lunch break, describing her day like a comedy routine. She had a way of making small annoyances funny, like turning a rude customer into a story with characters and plot twists. She'd call me at night and ask, "Tell me one good thing that happened today," like it was a rule we lived by. I started looking for good things just so I could answer her. That kind of attention changes the temperature of your whole life. I fell for her laughter first, not just because it was pretty, but because it was generous. She laughed at my jokes like she was proud of me. We'd watch movies, and she'd pause them to debate which character was truly the villain, then demand I give a closing argument like a lawyer. I'd sit up, clear my throat, and deliver a ridiculous case. She'd clap like I just won court. "Your Honor," she'd say, pointing at the screen, "my man is correct." It was playful, romantic, easy. We did little trips that felt bigger than they were. A weekend in Baltimore's Inner Harbor, walking around like tourists, sharing an overpriced dessert, and making jokes about how we were fancy. She convinced me to take silly photos in front of murals, then insisted we rank them like album covers. We got caught in the rain and ran under an awning, laughing too hard to care we were soaked. She squeezed my hand and said, "I like you like this, unbothered." I believed that was the version of me she would protect. I brought her into my routines, and she made them lighter. She'd come over while I meal prepped and narrate what I was doing like a cooking show host. Today, Derek is seasoning chicken with the seriousness of a man filing taxes. I'd toss her a piece of bell pepper, and she'd catch it dramatically, then bow like a performer. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was my entertainment. She made my quiet life feel vivid. I started imagining a future with her because the present felt so good. My friends liked her too. At game nights in Bowie, she'd roast everybody equally, including me, but it felt affectionate then. She'd lean on my shoulder afterward and whisper, "You know, I only tease you because you can take it." I took it because I loved her. I also took it because I wanted to be the kind of man who didn't turn small things into big problems. If love was going to last, I thought, you had to be patient. You had to be steady. You had to stay above the noise. The first crack appeared like a joke that landed wrong. We were at a friend's birthday dinner in D.C., and someone asked how we met. I started telling the story, smiling, and Imani cut in with a laugh. He was hovering by my table like a lost little boy. People laughed. I laughed too, but it pinched. Later, in the car, I told her it made me feel small. She shrugged and said, "Derek, you are too sensitive." Everybody laughed. She said it casually, like I was inconveniencing her with my feelings. I ignored it because the next day, she sent me a long message about how much she appreciated me. "You made me feel safe," she wrote. "You don't play games." That sentence mattered to me. I wanted to be safe. I wanted to be the man she trusted. When she asked me to help her look at a budget for her skincare supplies, I did it. When she said her phone bill was higher than expected, I covered it once. When she said she was stressed about rent, I helped her just this month. I told myself it was partnership. Then partnership became a pattern. She started asking in that sweet voice that made it hard to say no. "Can you handle this one for me? Can you just spot me? Can you do it this time and I'll get the next?" I covered more than I wanted to admit. Meanwhile, she started dressing up more often, leaving the house with more excitement than she had for our dates. When I asked where she was going, she'd say, "Networking," like it was a shield. If I asked follow-up questions, she'd look at me like I was embarrassing. The romantic moments didn't disappear right away, which made everything confusing. She'd still crawl into my lap and kiss my cheek while I watched a game. She'd still send me selfies asking, "Do you miss me?" And I'd answer yes because I did. But there were new sharp edges. She would cancel plans late and act annoyed if I was disappointed. She would forget things I said mattered to me, then laugh like it was silly I expected her to remember. It was like she was slowly training me to accept less. The humiliations became more public. At a cookout in Baltimore, she told a group of women I was the reliable one, then added, "Not exciting, but reliable." It was the way she said it, like exciting was what she deserved and reliable was what she settled for. One of the women glanced at me with pity, and I hated how hot my face felt. On the ride home, I told Imani it was disrespectful. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're overreacting. I literally complimented you." She never apologized. Not once. Around that time, Kendrick Lane entered our lives as a name I heard too often. Kendrick said I should rebrand. Kendrick thinks I should raise my prices. Kendrick knows a photographer. At first, I tried to be supportive. If she had a mentor, fine. But she talked about him like he was the judge of everything. And she talked about me like I was a background character. I asked to meet him. She laughed and said, "Why?" "So you can interrogate him." Then she added, "Relax, Derek. He's just a co-worker." Imani started guarding her phone in ways she never used to. She'd flip it face down, take it to the bathroom, step outside to answer calls. When I asked what changed, she said, "Nothing changed. You changed." That line was her favorite because it moved the spotlight away from her. She'd say it calmly, like she was diagnosing me. If I pressed, she'd accuse me of insecurity. If I got quiet, she'd act like I was punishing her. Either way, I became the problem. That's what toxic people do. They rewrite reality until your instincts feel like a flaw. I try to fix it the way I fix problems at work, with clarity. I planned a date night in Silver Spring, the same kind of place where we started. I wore the cologne she liked. I brought her favorite dessert. I asked her directly, "Are you happy with me?" She laughed softly and said, "Derek, you're fine." Not, "I love you." Not, "I'm committed." Just, "You're fine." Like I was a serviceable choice. Then she changed the subject to an event Kendrick invited her to. I sat there feeling like the table was moving away from me inch by inch. She began disappearing for long stretches and returning with a new kind of arrogance. She'd walk in like the room belonged to her, kiss me quickly, and start scrolling on her phone. When I asked about her day, she'd give me half answers. If I asked about the event, she'd say it was business while smiling like she had secrets. Once, she came over and tossed her keys onto my counter and said, "You should be grateful I even make time." The words were light, but the message was heavy. I was lucky to have her, and she could replace me. I stayed longer than I should have because I loved the version of her I met. I kept hoping she would come back to herself. My friends noticed I was quieter. My mother noticed I looked tired. They asked if I was okay, and I said yes because I was embarrassed. It is hard to admit someone is mistreating you when you built your identity on being unshakable. I thought enduring was strength. I didn't realize endurance becomes self-betrayal when you keep enduring cruelty without limits. The night it broke open started with something simple: flowers. I had a long week, and I wanted to do something romantic without it being a big talk. I stopped at a grocery store in Hyattsville and picked a bouquet I knew she liked. I drove to her apartment in Silver Spring earlier than I usually did because she'd said she was home all night. I imagined her smile. I imagined her laughing at the surprise. I imagined the old warmth. I carried those flowers like a hopeful apology for my own doubts. When I reached her door, I heard her laugh through the thin walls. It was loud, careless laughter. Then a man's voice answered, "Too comfortable, too close." I froze, bouquet in my hand, because my body understood before my mind would accept it. I stood there, listening, trying to place the voice. And then I heard my name. Not spoken with love. Not spoken gently. Spoken like a joke someone tells at someone else's expense. "Derek Miles," she said, drawing out. "He really thinks I'm serious. He's sweet. Harmless." The man, Kendrick, chuckled and said something I couldn't make out, and Imani laughed harder. She sounded proud of how easily she fooled me. She sounded amused by my loyalty. In that moment, I felt something go cold inside my chest, like my heart stopped volunteering. I didn't knock. I didn't kick the door. I didn't beg. I stepped back, walked down the hallway slowly, and left like I was walking away from a burning building without running. In my car, I stared at the steering wheel until my hand stopped shaking. The next day, she texted me like nothing happened. "Hey babe, how's your morning?" She used the same heart emoji. When I didn't answer, she called, then called again. I finally replied, "I came by last night." Minutes passed. Then, and I typed, "I heard you." She sent back, "He was just dropping something off." No apology, no panic, no attempt to repair. Just a lie delivered with confidence, like she expected me to swallow it. That was my proof. She didn't just cheat. She thought I was easy to manipulate. I stopped pleading for the truth. I stopped asking her to respect me. I decided to respect myself in a way she couldn't interfere with. Quietly, I reviewed everything that tied my life to hers. My name was on some utilities because I'd helped her set them up when she moved. My card was saved on subscriptions she used. I had been paying her phone line temporarily, and temporary had stretched into months. I didn't announce anything. I didn't threaten. I simply started detangling my life like a man cleaning up after a storm. That week, I called each provider and removed myself. I transferred what could be transferred into her name. I canceled what was mine. I changed passwords on accounts I paid for. I documented receipts and payments, not to weaponize them publicly, but to make sure nobody could twist the story into Derek abandoned me. I also went to my credit union in Bowie and moved the money I had been saving for a ring into an account only I could access. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad. But underneath the sadness was something steadier: control. Imani kept acting like I was the problem. She texted, "So you're really going to be dramatic?" She sent, "You always do this emotional thing." When I asked her directly if she was sleeping with Kendrick, she replied, "You sound crazy." The cruelty wasn't loud. It was casual, like she was swatting away a fly. She didn't show remorse, because remorse would require her to admit she was wrong. People who enjoy power over you rarely admit wrongdoing. They only admit inconvenience. That's what she did. She treated my pain like an inconvenience she wanted me to manage alone. My suffering didn't end immediately just because I had evidence. In some ways, it got worse. I missed the good moments. I missed the laughter that used to feel like home. I looked at my phone too often, then felt disgusted with myself. I drove past places we went and felt my stomach tighten. At work, I stayed composed, but I felt hollow. I started realizing how many decisions I'd made around her mood, her approval, her comfort. It hit me that I had been shrinking to keep the peace, and the peace still didn't come. 2 weeks later, karma began knocking, quietly at first. Imani's tone changed when the first subscription stopped working. "My streaming isn't logging in." Did you change something? I said, that account is mine. She replied, so? Like ownership didn't matter if she wanted it. Then her phone line got suspended. She called me from a different number and demanded, fix it, Derek. Not can you help? Not I'm sorry. Just an order. I told her calmly, you can put it in your name. She cursed under her breath and hung up. The real crash came on a Tuesday morning. I was in a conference room in Columbia, listening to a quarterly update, when my phone lit up with frantic calls. I stepped out, listened to the voicemail, and heard panic wrapped in anger. Derek, my power is off. My Wi-Fi is off. I can't get into my accounts. What did you do? She sounded outraged, like I had committed a crime by stopping payment. She never said, I hurt you. She never said, I'm sorry. She only said, fix it. That message confirmed everything. Even in crisis, she saw me as a tool. I later learned Kendrick did not rescue her. Because Kendrick liked the thrill of sneaking around, not the responsibility of real life. When her lights went out and her phone stopped working, he vanished. When she needed someone to handle bills and paperwork, he was suddenly busy. That's how those situations go. People who help break your relationship rarely help rebuild your stability. They take the fun part and leave the consequences. Imani found that out the hard way, and she blamed me for it, because blaming herself would require a character she didn't have. She came to my place unannounced that evening, pounding on my door like I owed her. When I opened it, she pushed past me, scanning my apartment as if she expected to find her comfort waiting. So you're just going to watch me struggle? She snapped. I stared at her, trying to recognize the woman I once wanted to marry in my mind. She looked like the same person, but her eyes were colder. I told her, Imani, you laughed about me while you cheated. She smirked and said, you heard what you wanted to hear. No remorse, just denial. She tried humiliation again, right in my living room. You were never exciting, she said, voice dripping with contempt. You were convenient. Then she looked around and added, this is why you're easy to leave. You don't have options. She said it like she believed it, like she needed to believe it. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm just not paying for you anymore. She laughed once, sharp, ugly laughter, and said, you really think you're doing something? She walked out without a single apology. She told mutual friends a version where I was controlling. She implied I was jealous. She framed my boundaries as cruelty. But something changed this time. People had watched her disrespect me for months. They had heard her jokes. They had seen how she used me. And when she tried to paint herself as a victim, the story didn't land the way she expected. I didn't campaign for sympathy. I didn't argue with her online. I stayed quiet and let her behavior speak for itself. Silence can be powerful when you stop using it to endure and start using it to exit. My private comeback didn't look like revenge. It looked like rebuilding. I took the money I had been pouring into her chaos and put it into my life. I finished a certification I'd postponed because I was always helping her. I updated my resume, applied for roles with better growth, and landed a position with more responsibility and better pay. I didn't announce it to anyone who didn't need to know. No speeches, no social media victory lap, just results. I also started seeing a therapist quietly, not to talk about her all day, but to understand why I tolerated disrespect as if it was normal. As I stabilized, I realized how often Imani had used humor as a weapon. In the beginning, her jokes made me feel chosen. Later, her jokes made me feel small. That's the difference between playful love and cruelty. Love laughs with you. Cruelty laughs at you. I stopped confusing the two. I started noticing my own patterns. How I tried to earn affection by being useful. How I stayed calm so nobody could accuse me of being too emotional. How I feared being alone more than being disrespected. Naming it hurt, but it also freed me. Funny enough, life started getting lighter again once I stopped carrying someone else's mess. I had evenings where I cooked without feeling like I was preparing for an argument. I reconnected with friends without worrying about Imani's mood. I went to a comedy show in DC and laughed until my sides hurt, then drove home feeling peaceful instead of anxious. My joy became quieter but steadier. I found romance in simple things again. Fresh sheets, clean counters, a morning run, music in the kitchen. It wasn't loneliness. It was calm, and calm felt like proof I was healing. Months later, I ran into someone who knew both of us at a grocery store in Bowie. We chatted briefly, and then she hesitated like she was deciding whether to tell me something. "Imani's still telling people you ruined her," she said. "But honestly, nobody believes it." I nodded, not because I needed validation, but because it confirmed what I already knew. When you stop feeding someone access to you, they often try to control the story. But stories collapse when your behavior stays consistent. I didn't retaliate. I didn't chase the narrative. I just kept living. Imani tried one last time to reach into my life when she heard I'd gotten a better job. She texted, "I'm proud of you. Then we should talk." I didn't answer. Then she wrote, "I never meant to hurt you." It was the closest thing to softness she'd ever offered, and even that wasn't an apology. It was a way to rewrite the past without accountability. I didn't respond because I learned the difference between closure and bait. Some people reach out when your life improves, not because they changed, but because they missed the benefits of your presence. The most romantic part of my comeback was learning to love myself with the same effort I once gave her. I started taking myself to dinner sometimes. Nothing dramatic, just a nice place in Baltimore, good food, my phone face down, my mind quiet. I bought flowers once, too, and put them in my own kitchen. I laughed at how small that act was and how powerful it felt. I didn't need anyone to clap. I didn't need anyone to understand. I just needed to know I was no longer the man standing outside a door, listening to his name become a joke. I still remember the blissful beginning, the playful debates, the rainy weekend, the way she once looked at me like I was the best part of her day. But I no longer worship those memories as evidence she was good for me. They were real, and so was the cruelty that followed. The difference is I finally believed the cruelty. Karma didn't strike as lightning from the sky. It arrived as consequences, bills, silence, disappearing allies, and a life that became harder when she couldn't lean on me anymore. My success stayed private. My peace stayed mine. And my name stopped being available for anyone's joke. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.